Every story, every article gets worse and worse and worse. I think the media is in a frenzy to rid this county of Yahweh Ben Yahweh and the Temple of Love.
Yahweh Ben Yahweh is not a criminal, has never been a criminal, and has never committed criminal acts. The government wanted my father so badly that they used the media to dampen his character and to make him appear to be guilty before other men, knowing full well that they were out to convict an innocent man.
Through the way it was released through the press, the government had done a publicity job of terrorizing the country. But if you read the papers, you would think that you were about to deal with a machine gun toting bunch of killers. But as time went on, everybody realized that this was hype. I understand it because it was politics. It was to get Yahweh Ben Yahweh out. Because the government really presented a scary case. And it was the sort of thing that was designed to scare people. Trudy Novicki, one of the prosecutors, literally walked through a graveyard in her closing argument. She had props of dead people in the courtroom, dead tombstones that she walked through. And I mean, it was eerie to be there. And it was designed to intimidate and to scare the jurors. And the only aim of it was to discredit the Nation of Yahweh, was to discredit Yahweh Ben Yahweh. The other people who were charged and who were found not guilty or found guilty of conspiracy, they were just window dressing. They were just there. Any of those people could have been out on the street now if they had come in and said, Yahweh Ben Yahweh told me to do this, that, or the other. And everything would have been fine for them.
After a trial spanning 5 months and almost 2 years of pretrial detention, it was time for the Yahweh case to go to the jury.
Let's take a look at what the jury had to consider. Number 1, RICO, which the court nor the lawyers understand, and which the government used as a tool of confusion to create a smokescreen of guilt where there was none. And 2, Robert Rozier, a pathological liar, a serial killer who would have done anything to get out of jail at the expense of innocent people.
I'd like for the individuals who view this to know that RICO is such a complex area of the law that it literally took a combination of, there were 17 defense lawyers and 2 prosecutors, so that's a total of 19 lawyers plus the judge. It took us essentially 2 days to fashion a RICO instruction.
Here is an actual set of the jury instructions in the federal case. Here is what the jury, none of which were lawyers, had to use to sort out the evidence in this case, which began in January of 1992 and ended in mid-May of 1992. Here is what the jury had to use to reach a verdict in the case of the United States of America versus Yahweh Ben Yahweh and the Nation of Yahweh.
Oh, they were definitely confused. I think everybody was confused. I think the judge was confused. I think the prosecutors were confused. Because there was one of the questions that came back pointed out to us conflicts in the instructions that we had given them.
My client was charged in 1 count of the indictment. The jury came back guilty 1 count and not guilty the other count, which was a little surprising because they acquitted him of something he wasn't charged with. I think it was pretty much impossible for the jury to fully understand all of the consequences, all of the language that was involved in that RICO instruction.
The jury for 3 days was sending out notes saying we're hopelessly deadlocked. We thought they were deadlocked on
specific crimes or specific defendants. We later learned from interviews that were done through the newspaper reporters that they couldn't agree on what the heck the jury instructions meant.
None of the defendants were found guilty of racketeering in the federal trial. But Yahweh Ben Yahweh and 6 out of 16 of his co-defendants were convicted of conspiracy to commit RICO.
The conviction was for conspiracy. Yes, as I was beginning to say, it is considered one of the prosecutor's favorite tools. Conspiracy says that you all got together and talked about doing something. Historically, it is the charge that jurors will, when pushed, convict upon.
When the acquittals came out and the mistrials on the vast majority of the charges, I think out of 21 potential counts on all 16 defendants, that there were 6 convictions and everyone else was either acquitted or mistried. The idea that while one prosecutor was standing in front of the camera saying, we've heard the jury has spoken, we don't agree with what they've said, but we will honor it, and the other prosecutor is over there in the back room filling out charges to have people who've just been acquitted by a jury who said, we didn't believe anything that this one witness, Robert Rozier, said.
Yahweh Ben Yahweh, along with 4 of his co-defendants, 3 of whom who had already been released from federal custody, were indicted by the state of Florida. While the federal prosecutor was out front proclaiming that they would honor the jury's verdicts, the state's attorney, Trudy Novicki, who had been loaned to the federal government to help try the federal case, was in the back room filling out new charges against Yahweh Ben Yahweh on the state level. This means that they were recharged using the same identical criminal acts, using the same prosecutor, Trudy Novicki, using the same government's witnesses, and using the same evidence. The difference? No RICO, no confusion, just the facts. The result? Not guilty.
The state of Florida versus Yahweh Ben Yahweh. We, the jury at Miami-Dade County, Florida, the 17th day of December, 1992, find the defendant Yahweh Ben Yahweh not guilty of the offense as to first degree.
And I think the result in the state court was a absolutely perfect example of it. They had a 2-week trial and the jury was out for 2 hours. They probably picked a foreman, had lunch, and then went out and threw the case out of the courthouse.
It has to do with the fact that in the federal case, they were permitted to bring in so much stuff legally. In the state case, they had to try a true case of murder. They had to prove that these men had committed a murder, and or that Yahweh Ben Yahweh had instructed them to commit a murder. And it just couldn't be done. And I think that's basically the difference. And they came back very quickly, too, with that verdict in the state murder trial, the not guilty verdict. After us it took us a week to pick a jury, it took us a week to try the case, and they came back with a verdict in 2 hours, and that included them ordering and eating their dinner. So I thought that they were pretty certain that there was no case.
After hearing all the facts of the case, minus the confusion of RICO, the state